Hi everyone, welcome to my channel JS2 Big Data. In this video, we will learn about the elements of AMQP. This is a complete tutorial series on RabbitMQ. So let's get started. Now before we get into understanding the elements of AMQP or RabbitMQ system, let us first try to understand the elements of a messaging system in general. So in general, you can see there is a producer that sends a message to a consumer via message broker. A producer can send a message to one or more destinations, that is consumers. So in general, there is a message producer which is the source of messages. It sends messages to one or more destinations such as queue or topics. And then there is message consumer. The message consumers are the subscribers that read or receives the published messages and processes them. Then we have message broker. Message brokers are the servers like RabbitMQ which delivers the messages to consumers. And then finally we have messages, the actual content or the actual payload. Messages can have certain metadata and headers as well. The content of a message can be binary, JSON, XML or plain text. Now that you have understood the elements of a messaging system in general, let us try to understand the elements of AMQP system. You can see in AMQP system we also have publisher which will send the messages via exchanges. Then these exchanges are connected to one or more queues through binding, and these queues are subscribed by the consumers. So let's understand each of them in details. Now also understand exchanges can be of any type, can be a topic, fan out, direct or header exchange. We will try to understand them in details little later. We have something called publisher. I already talked about publisher. These are the source of messages. Typically, it is an AMQP client applications which will generate messages and forward them to AMQP exchanges. Then we have the messages. Message are the actual payload which will be produced by the publishers, and it has all the necessary information such as source, headers, properties and routing informations. Then we have subscriber. It is also an AMQP client applications which will receive the messages and sends acknowledgement to the message broker. It is also called as consumer. Then we have message broker. This is the middleware server that is responsible for delivering messages, which is nothing but your RabbitMQ server. The broker has exchanges and queues. We will look into the different types of exchanges in the later videos. Then we have message exchange. An exchange receives a message from the producer, routes the message to the right queue depending upon the bindings. Then we have message queue. A queue receives the message from the exchanges and sends it to the consumer. If the consumer is not ready to receive, it will store the message in disk or memory. Then we have something called connection. Connection is a TCP connection between the client application and the RabbitMQ broker. So connections are the physical connections that is established between your client application and the server. Then we have called channel. Channel is nothing but a virtual connection inside the physical connection. Then we also have something called binding. This is a link between a queue and an exchange. Then we have routing key. Based on the routing keys, exchange decides how to route the message to a queue. It is like a destination address. Then we have something called virtual host, which is like Apache virtual host. It allows segregations of the environment based on the application needs. We will try to understand how to send a message to a queue now. Ideally, you should never send a message directly to a queue. You would first send it to an exchange, and then exchange will be linked with one or more queue, and depending on the type of routing key, your messages will be routed to the destinations. Right now, for simplicity, we will try to learn how to send a message to a queue directly. So you would need to create a Maven project with the dependency AMQP client, and then inside your project you need to create connection factory, connection and channel. So the way you would do it, first you will create connection factory as shown on the screen, and then you would create a connection from the connection factory, and then you will create a channel from the connection.createChannel. And then you can create a queue programmatically using channel.queueDeclare as shown on the screen. And then the second step would be to create a message publisher which will publish the message. So all we will do is we will use a for loop, and inside the for loop we will use channel.basicPublish as shown on the screen. And then we will consume the message from the queue as shown on the screen. We will use callback methods available in Java 8 onwards. Before I take you through the programmatical approach, I will first show you on the admin UI how to send a message, and I will show you using the admin UI how to send a message to a queue. So you need to first log in and then you need to go to the queue. I already have created queue1. If you want, you can create new queue called queue1 and make sure you set the durability property as durable. I don't want to auto delete it, so let's just add. Now inside the queue1, publish a message. Let's say I'll say test1. I will publish the message. Now if you want to read the message, you can do get messages. Now the moment you do get message, it will remove the message from the queue1 queue, but to do that you need to set no. So the moment you read a message, this message will be deleted from the queue depending on if you have set requeue equal to true or false. So right now I have requeue as no. So if I try to read it again, I will find that queue is empty because the queue does not have any more messages. I will try to achieve the exact same thing using programmatical approach. And before doing all this, make sure your RabbitMQ server is up and running. This has been already covered in the installation and setup tutorial. Everything that I have spoken in this tutorial is already written on my blog, so please make sure you go through the article which is on elements of AMQP. I have mentioned about the basic messaging model, AMQP elements, and the code examples that I have spoken in this video tutorial. If you have any comments, so please write it down below. Now we will learn how to programmatically publish a message to a queue and subscribe the queue. Let's get started. This is the URL where I have committed all the codes related to this tutorial. Now the code related to this particular video is present inside the getting started, then basic queue, and inside this basic queue you have 4 files. So all you need to do is just clone this repository and import it in your favorite IDE. So I already have the code. I will open it. Now the very first thing that you need to do is create a common configuration file. We will define our queue as queue1 and also the string related to AMQP connection. So that is AMQP : username : password @localhost 5672. Make sure the RabbitMQ server is up and running. Next, you need to write the code related to publisher. We will create a class called message publisher. Inside this we will have a method public static void main, and then we will create factory. Next is to create connection from the factory.new connection and pass in the AMQP URL. Then create channel from the connection, and finally create the queue. We will simply create a queue with durable as true, exclusive as false, auto delete as false, and with no extra arguments. Inside this for loop we are going to send 4 messages as getting started with RabbitMQ message 0, 1, 2, 3, and these messages will be published using this method channel.basic_publish. And then finally, once the publishing is done, we will first close the channel and then we will close the connection. Remember the sequence: first close the channel, then connection. Next, similarly, we will create a class called message subscriber. Inside the public static void main, we will write 2 callback methods. One is called deliver callback, other one is cancel callback. These callback methods will be used to subscribe the queue. And finally, we will subscribe the queue. This is the queue name that we have stored inside the common config default queue. Then we will set auto acknowledge as true. This is the callback that will be invoked when the message delivery or message is successfully received. And cancel callback will be called if for some reason the subscription is cancelled. Now we will run the code. Make sure you run the subscriber first so that you know if there are any previously sent messages available. So our subscriber is running now, and then I will run the publisher. So our publisher has published the messages and exited successfully. Now I will go to the subscriber. As you can see, the subscriber was still running and it found the messages. If I run the publisher again, it is going to send another 4 set of messages. So I hope this gave you a clear idea about how you can publish a message to a queue and how you can have a subscriber listening to the queue. In the later videos, we will look into the message publish, subscribe more in details with the help of all 4 types of exchanges. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.